Youts, Nuh Abti. Hello, I'm called Ab, and welcome to the Okay, doesn't seem to want to work for some reason. I had the theme song queued up and ready to go, and it's not playing for some reason, but that's okay. So for today's live stream, I just wanted to talk a little bit about an upcoming event, and then we'll get into the how do you say it and the word of the week. So next Friday and Saturday, that's September 29th and 30th, there's going to be a cultural event in Kitimat village. And I'm going to bring up my document viewer here. This is the poster that was sent out over Facebook. I'm just going to I can't turn off my camera on this one. Haven't quite set that up yet, but so the event is called Giwat Klab. I do have some issues with the font here, but I won't get into that here. But the pronunciation of this is Giwat Klab. And actually, I'm going to get into that a little bit later on in the regular features of this show once I get into those. So this is a Truth and Reconciliation event, since Saturday is National Truth and Reconciliation Day here in Canada. So this will take place at the Heisler Rec Center in Kitimat Village. So again, that's September 29th and 30th. So on the Friday, starting at 5 p.m., there's going to be a community dinner. There's feast stew. So if you've been to feasts before in Kitimat Village, then you know the drill. Bring your own bowls, utensils, and cups. There will be speakers. Looks like a typo there. That should say speakers, and an update from the Culture and Language Department. I will be one of the speakers. I believe I will be the first one. I'll have to check on that, but that's what I'm assuming, is that I'll be the first speaker, and I'm going to be talking about my work with the language. So it should be pretty interesting. Then, there's going to be other motivational speakers there that will speak throughout the evening. So that's the first day, and then the second day is September 30th. It's a Saturday. So there's a Truth and Reconciliation Walk that starts at 10:30 a.m. So we'll be gathering outside the rec center and then walking down towards the field, probably up towards the fire hall, and coming back to the rec center. So that is a walk for truth and reconciliation. There will be drum making workshops happening, and at 10:30, at 11 o'clock, there's vendors inside the rec center. There will be games happening, drumming. There's prizes and learning tables. So there will be a table set up where people will be teaching certain activities. So that will be happening during that day. So various activities will be taking place. And then 5 p.m., there will be a catered dinner. And these events are free and open to everyone, open to the general public. Let's see the orange shirts, since that is Orange Shirt Day. The special and important events are brought to you. I think there's another word missing there. Brought to you by the HNC Cultural Department and the Tamatug Status of Women. So that is the event on next Friday and Saturday, the 29th and 30th of September. And again, I will be doing a presentation on the Friday evening. So I just wanted to let people know about that. Hope to see you there if you're in the Kitimat area. I'll drop on by. And so basically what I wanted to do, the idea that I had was I want to try and live stream my presentation. So I'm taking a bit of a risk in doing that because I can't really test out the facility ahead of time to see how the internet handles streaming, or if it can handle streaming. So what I'm doing right now is, besides doing the live stream, I'm also recording this at the same time. So I'm live streaming to my personal Facebook page and to the islak YouTube channel. So those are live right now. And I'm also recording a copy of this to my hard drive on my laptop. So that is a backup. So I just wanted to try that out. I wasn't even aware if I could stream and record at the same time. So I just tried it out when I started this stream, and it looks like it's the stream is happening and the recording is going as well. So if there are technical problems that happen when I'm trying to do my presentation and the stream doesn't go out, at least I will have a recorded copy of it. So I still need to figure out how I'm going to set everything up, like my camera. I'm going to set that up, and I'm going to have a document that I'll be kind of using to guide me through my presentation and things like that. So I'll work things out as much as I can beforehand, but a lot of it is just basically trying it out once I get there and seeing what happens and hoping for the best. So I'll have my fingers crossed that everything works out. So I wanted to give that a try. I really enjoy doing these live streams, and it's a good opportunity for me to pass along some of the knowledge that I have about the language. And something that's different about the way I teach the language is I teach people how the language works. And that's been my biggest area of focus, is talking about the mechanics of the language. And that's really how I have been learning the language myself. I am still a learner myself. I've said before that I'm not a fluent speaker yet. I do plan on becoming a fluent speaker. That is a goal that is absolutely doable. It's absolutely achievable, not just by me, but by anybody who wants to study the language. But it has to be done in a certain way. And it has to be done sequentially. It has to be done progressively. So starting from the smallest parts of the language, which are the sounds, individual sounds, and then working your way up a little bit at a time. That's kind of the gradual progression that I have in mind. That I'm still working on that plan in terms of actually doing it and practicing that. So I'll be working that out as I go along. I am teaching a class currently in the village. It's to a limited enrollment. There's only a handful of students that are part of the class, but eventually, hopefully somewhere down the road, we'll have classes open to the general public. But there's a lot of things that have to be worked out before we can start to think about doing that. So I'm working things out as I go along. I have a lot of knowledge about the language, and a lot of the things that I know are things that come to me really quickly, basically automatically. So it's kind of hard for me to think about, to like slow things down and think about how to explain some of these things that come to me so quickly and naturally. How do I explain those to people who aren't familiar with the language, who are just learning, or just starting out? So that's something that I've really been working on, is trying to figure out the best approach for doing that. So hopefully you'll bear with me as I work things out, and these videos, these live streams are a big part of that. I like doing the live streams because there's nobody else around here. It's just me in my office in front of a camera. And I find that pretty relaxing. It's not a really high stress situation. And it also allows me an opportunity to kind of talk maybe a little more casually about the language, and I don't have to put together like a formal lesson plan. I can just kind of sit here and talk, and I do have a general idea of what I'm going to be talking about during each live stream. I have a loose outline that I have in mind. So that's another part of when I start really teaching the language, is getting lesson plans down, and that's going to be a lot of work. Like just planning one lesson is a lot of work. So I'm going to be planning like a lot of lessons. So it's going to be a lot of planning, a lot of preparation time. So I think a lot of people aren't aware of what actually goes into teaching, or even to presenting, like doing these live streams. I can get them up and going pretty quickly, and I can do them fairly easily, but it is actually a lot of preparation. There's graphics. Actually, speaking of graphics, I haven't brought up the thumbnail for this week's show. So I just turn my camera off there so you can see the whole screen, see the whole graphic. So preparing this graphic takes time, because I change the date for each show, and then once I finish doing that, I have to actually export this as a new file, and then I have to import that into my broadcasting software and put it up so I can access it while I'm broadcasting. So there's a few different steps I have to go through just to show you the thumbnail and to have that ready to go. So that's one thing that I have to do. The other thing is preparation for the regular features that I have on the show. One of them is what I call WOW, the word of the week, and there's another feature called How Do You Say It. So those are pretty short, but it still takes some time. So I have to do the typing. I have to get everything ready for that, and I have to make sure that it's ready to go when I'm ready to start broadcasting. And there's a whole bunch of other steps that are involved. So just doing this live stream, switching back and forth between different screens, having everything set up so that I can have that ready to go before I start streaming or recording or whatever it is that I'm doing. So all of that takes work. It's not just a simple matter of sitting here in front of my computer. There's a lot of preparation that goes into it before I even hit the streaming button or the record button. So the same goes for teaching an actual class. I describe it kind of like an iceberg. When you're watching somebody teaching, you're only seeing about 10% of what's actually happening. So you don't see all of the preparation that goes into teaching a class. So there's a lot that goes into it. So I taught a university course a couple years ago, and for me, just to prepare one lesson for one day, it took hours. And I'm not exaggerating there. Like it literally took hours for me to plan each lesson and have them ready to go in time for the next lesson. So there's a lot of preparation that goes into teaching. So it's a little bit difficult when you're still just learning the language yourself, like I am. And it kind of complicates things a little bit. So I'm kind of planning things out in terms of, I have an overall vision as to how I would like to teach the language. So it's a lot of work, a lot of preparation, and so there's so much that goes into it that you don't see, and you don't see the years of study and practice that goes into it. So I've done a lot of teaching in my life, so I have a lot of that experience to draw upon when I'm teaching a course. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. So all I ask for is patience. And that's another thing that is very important when you're learning the language is having patience with your instructor. Like if I'm your high islak teacher, I would like for people to have patience in me, have patience in yourself. Language learning is it's not something you can't learn the high islak language overnight. You can't become fluent like that. It's a long process. So people need to kind of be ready for that. It's a lot of work. It's hard work, especially learning a language that is so different from English, like high islak is. I keep telling people that high islak is a completely different language than English is. Off the top of my head, I can't even think of anything that is similar between the two languages. It might surprise people to know that high islak has more in common with Latin than it does with the English language. And I know this because I've studied a little bit of Latin. And with the tiny bit of studying that I've done with Latin, I've found that word and sentence structure is very similar between Latin and high islak. It's completely different in English. Totally different. So that's something you kind of have to wrap your head around and be prepared for if you're really serious about studying the high islak language. So it really comes down to perspective. How do you view language? How do you think about language? And studying a language like high islak that's so different than English, it really, you kind of have to shift your way of thinking about language. So that's something that takes a long time. And there might be some resistance to it from different people. They might not be that open to doing that, and also the fact that it's a lot of work. It's very hard work, but it's not hard work for nothing. It's all going somewhere. It'll all build up and lead you somewhere. So you will have something to show for it when you put the work in to studying the language and really, really applying yourself and learning the language, learning how it works. That's what I focus on when I teach the language, as I said before, is teaching people how the language works. So that's something to keep in mind, and hopefully that'll make it a little bit easier if you're just starting to learn the language, if you've been watching my videos for the past while, or even if you've been watching since I started making these videos, which I think was probably March of last year. So I did recorded videos for about a year, and it was this past summer where I started doing the live streams. So if you've been following as I've been recording videos and doing live streams, I talk about certain aspects of the language, and I really go in depth about how the language works. So the reason I do that is to give people a better idea and to prepare them for how the language works, how high islak is different from English. It's something you kind of have to open your mind to. And again, I know that's not an easy process for some people, especially. It might be a bit more of a struggle for some people than for others. But again, that goes back to having patience in the process, and that it's all going to lead up to something, and it'll all build up. And the reason that I teach the hybrid orthography, which is the standard writing system, is it will empower you. If you learn to read the language, you will become empowered. And it'll open all kinds of doors for you. Because I start off by teaching people the hybrid orthography, and later on, once people get really good with the hybrid orthography, then my plan will be to start teaching people how to read other high islak writing systems, like Hein Vink's writing system, Lincoln and Rath, Emmenbach. I'd probably start with Emmenbach because, well, the hybrid orthography is really based on Emmenbach's second orthography. It's mostly Emmenbach's second orthography. It's about 95% Emmenbach's second writing system. The difference between the hybrid orthography that I use and Emmenbach's orthography is 4 symbols. 4. That's it. If you learn Emmenbach's writing system, his second orthography, he developed more than one. If you learn his second orthography, all you have to do from there is learn 4 symbols, 4 letters. That's it. Then you'll know the hybrid orthography, which is the standard writing system that is being used today. And everything that I present is in the hybrid orthography. So it's a consistent writing system. And to me, in my opinion, consistency is key to learning the Haisla language and to teaching the Haisla language. So I got off on a bit of a tangent there, so I talked a little bit more about language learning and teaching than I was originally planning, but that's kind of one of the reasons why I do these live streams, is it kind of allows me that freedom to do that if I want to talk more about things like that. And I'm hoping that when people learn more about what I have planned and my approach to learning the language, that it'll make it easier for people to learn, and you'll be more accepting and have your mind open to this process. So that's kind of what I have in mind. That's what I'm hoping. So with that, I'm going to jump into my regular features in the show. So I'm switching to my, whoops, pressed the wrong button there. So I'm switching to my Word document. For some reason, my buttons don't seem to be doing anything, so I'll do this manually. So the first feature that we have every week here is called How Do You Say It? And this first word is huquum. Huquum. So you probably heard a bit of wind there. And that's how I know I'm pronouncing this properly. Huquum. And this means wild rice. And this is actually the wild rice grains. Oh, they're not really grains, but they're kind of, I don't know how else to describe them really. They grow underground. They're they're attached to the roots. So they're kind of like grains, I guess you could say, but they're underground. So that's what is referred to as huquum. The actual plant itself is called huquas. Huquas is a wild rice plant, or chocolate lily. That's another name for it. Chocolate lily plant. Huquas. Huquum is the wild rice grains. And the next word is giwatlab. So I talked about this at the beginning of the show when I talked about the community event that's coming up next weekend. So it's giwatlab, and this means to help each other. So one thing I want to point out, I've talked about this before. Haisla words are essentially descriptions. So single Haisla words are not really meant to be used by themselves. So that can be a bit of a problem at times. So naming an event Giwatlab, it tells you about helping each other, but there is some information missing. It's lacking context. So if we were to take this word Giwatlab and add more information to it, it would be more helpful, in my opinion. Knowing how the language works, this is what I would do. I would add this symbol, which is called a barred lambda. So this would talk about the future. So we have Giwatlab, and then a barred lambda, and then I would add There's a couple of different ways you could say this. I would probably say anise. So this is a suffix, and this barred lambda is also a suffix. So a suffix is something that you add to a word, the end of a word. So if I move this in, now we have a different word. Now we have giwatlabtlanis. Giwatlabtlanis. And this would mean take the caps lock off. We will help each other. To me, this is better. Because if you just say giwatlab, you're talking about helping each other, but you're not saying who's helping who. So there might be some questions there. If you just say giwatlab to somebody, there's probably going to be questions, like to a fluent speaker, to an elder. If you just say the word giwatlab, they're probably going to ask, help who? So this, by adding suffixes to this word, we can build this into something that gives you more meaning, something that adds context. So if you say giwatlabtlanis, now you're adding context. Now you're saying we will help each other. So in my mind, this is a really good way of putting it. So I'm just going to go back to my webcam here. And this is how I think about the language. When I create sentences, like I just did, I just created a sentence right there in front of you. When I'm doing that, I'm thinking about three people. In my mind, I'm imagining three people. There's me, the speaker. There's somebody else that's close to me, close by. And then there's another person who is further away. So maybe they're in the same room, but they're on the other side of it, or maybe they're in the same building, but they're in a different room. Something along those lines. And that's what I'm imagining. Me, someone close to me, someone else, somewhere else. So this helps me in terms of building my sentence, because I start to think about who I'm talking to. So if I was in a room full of people, I would be able to say, giwatlabtlanis, we will help each other, because I'd be including everybody in that room with me. That's what that anise part means. It means me and you, all of us combined. So that's how I think about the language, and that's how I'm able to create sentences on my own. And you just saw it. I did it right in front of you. I created a sentence just off the top of my head, and that's something that I'm able to do because of the knowledge that I have about how the language works and what I have in my mind when I'm creating sentences. I'm imagining three people. I'm also thinking about three locations as well. I'm thinking about where I am. I'm thinking about where another person might be if they're close to me. I'm thinking about where somebody else might be if they're somewhere else. Or if I'm talking about a place, I'd be talking about, if I'm talking about being here, I'd say it one way. If I'm talking about being somewhere else, then I'd say it a different way. Like, for example, if I talked about where I'm from, I would say, Kia kalent imotsi chai. Kia kalent imotsi chai. And that means I come from Kitimat village or Snag Beach. And I say imotsi chai because I'm not in the village right now. I'm in town as I'm speaking. If I were in the village, then I would say it differently. I would say, Kia kalent imotsi kiach. Kia kalent imotsi kiach. And that would mean I'm from Kitimat village and I'm there now. It's near me. or technically I would be near it because the village can't move. So I can move, so that's what would change. I would be in the village, I would be close to it. So those are things that I'm thinking about when I'm creating sentences. And that's how I'm able to do it, is I'm thinking about 3 people, I'm thinking about 3 locations. I'm also thinking about 3 different time periods. So I'm thinking about past tense, present tense, future tense. So in the phrase that I created, that barred lambda that you saw, that is future tense. So it's not present tense, it's not past tense, it's not present tense, it's future tense. It's something that will happen in the future. So those are things that I'm thinking about when I'm creating sentences in islak. And it takes a long time to get to that way of learning. Not sure how to say that, but to get to where I am in terms of my learning, there's a lot of learning you'd have to do to get to there. But again, that's where patience comes in terms of your learning journey. So I've put a lot of hard work into learning the language to get to where I am today. And you can see that it's paid off. I didn't have to go to a fluent speaker to say, how would you say this? Because I already know. I can do it off the top of my head. So that's the benefit of this way of learning. And that's what I'm hoping other people will be able to do in this process of learning, this way of teaching the language. So going back to my Word document. That is how do you say it. And now the next feature is wow, the word of the week. And it is tsayodzi. Tsayodzi. And this means a baby beaver. So I pick words that are really interesting and words that you might not expect us to have in the Iceland language. But if you've ever wondered if we have a word for a baby beaver, specifically a baby beaver, now you know we do. And it's tsayodzi. And that is wow, the word of the week. And I'm going to bring back up my webcam here. So that's it for this week's live stream. So again, hopefully you'll be able to see the live stream next week as I'm doing my presentation. So another reason I want to try and do a live stream next week, and if I can't get the live stream going, at least record it, is because I would like to have some kind of a record of my presentation, because I do present every once in a while, not very often, maybe once a year or so, but I do have public presentations that I carry out once in a while, and I don't actually have anything of any of my presentations. No audio, no video, pictures, because like I'm presenting, I can't really take pictures of myself while I'm presenting, because I'm a photographer. I could probably set something up, but that would be extra preparation, and I've got enough to worry about with just doing a presentation, so I tend not to do that. So I know how it'd be nice if I could clone myself, so that I could actually have I could take pictures of myself while I'm presenting, because there are certain things that I do when I'm taking pictures. I don't just stand like at the other end of the room and take pictures from a really far distance away. If I am taking pictures further away, then I have a telephoto lens, so I can zoom in and get closer visually if I'm not doing it physically. But I'm getting off topic here. I can't do that because I can't clone myself yet. I don't know how to do that, but I'm working on it. Where where was I going with that? I'm not even sure now. But having a record of one of my presentations would be really helpful, I think. Not just to myself, but for people who can't be there for the actual event. Then you can see. So, as I said, I have some things to work out before it comes time for my presentation. So I'll try and prepare as much as I can before that, and the rest of it is just going for it and seeing how it works out. So hopefully if you're in Kitimat next weekend, so that's September 29th and 30th, I'll be presenting on the 29th. So hopefully we'll see you there. If not, we'll see you on the next live stream. So that's it for this week. Until next time, remember, learning is its own reward. Ik squigwe les. Wa.